I'm going to talk a little bit about reciting the Shurangama Mantra. The Shurangama Mantra is the longest mantra in Buddhism and one of the most efficacious. It has probably the broadest application, everything from devotional to mentally medicinal to concentration and meditation, focus. It is an offering to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas when it's recited properly. It demands close focus. It's impossible to recite without being present and aware. It's an offering of body, speech, and mind, and it leads to realization that is commensurate with one's dedication to the practice. So let's get into a little bit about what this talk is about, the practical difficulty of remembering a 520 line mantra. Any mantra, even a 6-syllable mantra like Om Mani Padme Hum, is difficult to practice with full attention, let alone a 520 line mantra. I'm doing this video because I myself periodically, check myself to see how I'm doing as far as recitation of the mantra goes. Since it has so many lines, occasionally I like to record myself reciting it and then go over the recording with the text to see if I'm reciting without any lines absent from the recitation. And usually I find that I have a line missing or two. Now the problem with, and that happened recently, that I checked myself and I found that I'm skipping some lines. Now, if you skip 1 or 2 lines, that's not so bad. But the issue is that when you skip a line, it usually leads to skipping many lines because the mantra is interwoven and connected. So each line is like a cue for the next line. So if you miss the cue, then you go to the next cue, which might be 10 or 15 lines later. So you never miss just one line. If you miss one line, it leads to many lines. So that's why it's important to check oneself periodically. Now, as far as remembering the mantra goes, memorizing the mantra, whether you already know it and you're just, bringing yourself up to speed, like I was doing recently, or you're just beginning to learn it, you always learn in sections, small sections. By small, it's different for everybody. And also I might point out that people have different memory capacities. I met people that learn the mantra and don't miss a line, and they have the whole mantra down within a week or so. Myself, it took about 6 months to learn the mantra. What I did was I cut up little squares with lines of the mantra on it, about 6 by 6 squares, with the mantra printed on each square, on front and back. And I laminated it, and then I pinned it to my monastic robe. So no matter what I was doing throughout the day, I would look at the little squares. With each square had about 30 or 40 lines on it. And I would just focus on one of the squares. And no matter what I was doing throughout the day, whether it was cleaning the temple, whether I was walking, whether I was doing dishes, whether I was getting dressed, I'd always look at the square and recite part of it. I'm really slow at memorization. It took me 6 months before I had it down. But that's the way to do it in sections. Now, years ago, I used to weight train, bodybuild when I was in high school. And if you try and bench press 400 pounds, let's say, unless you've been doing it a while, it's very difficult. If you want to bench press 400 pounds, you might start with 100 pounds and doing 10 repetitions with 100 pounds, and gradually gain your strength. And after a time, you'll be up to 200 pounds, and then 300 pounds, and then 400 pounds. The same principle applies to actually mental strength, memory strength. If you try and memorize the whole mantra, you'll never succeed any more than you could bench press 400 pounds all at once. But if you take a little bit of the mantra and get it down really well and never miss, then you move on to the next section. And then if you do that, little by little, your memory capacity grows, and you will gain memory strength that will enable you to recite the entire mantra all at once and without missing a single line. But it all depends. Each individual is different. It might take you a week. If you have a very, very, very good memory, it might take you a month, 6 months like myself, or maybe longer. So much depends on memory strength as far as getting the mantra down so you can recite it. But getting to recite the mantra is really just beginner's work. It is not really getting to know the mantra. It's just getting to be able to recite it. It's a good start. But being able to recite the mantra from memory is so that you can peel off deeper levels of the capacity of the mantra to reveal to you the nature of your mind. So there's very different kinds of recitations. At the beginning, you're just reciting the mantra, and you're focusing on reciting the mantra. After a time of reciting the mantra, as the months go by and the years go by, the mantra actually disappears into the background, so that as the mantra begins to reveal the nature of the mind, there's less awareness of the mantra itself, so that you kind of disappear into a different world as the mantra introduces you to the nature of your mind. And when this happens, you kind of lose awareness of the mantra itself. And I like the analogy of a rope and a very, very fine thread of a spider's web. I'll use the word thread, but there's actually a name for that, though, that thread that the spiders weave. It's so very, very fine, finer than your hair by about 100 times. So when you begin reciting the Shurangama Mantra, you're holding it with the rope of mindfulness. You're aware of the mantra, very much aware of the mantra. But gradually that rope turns into a cord, and then it turns into a thread, a very, very fine thread, so that it's so fine that you really don't even know the mantra is there. We can use the analogy of a fishing line. Fishing for the fishermen, and keep in mind, not all fishermen fish to keep and eat their fish. So fishing's not always that cruel. But from a Buddhist perspective, we don't like to fish, but nevertheless, we can use fishing as a very good example of how to hold a mantra properly. So, like fly fishermen and even ocean fishermen, but fly fishermen specifically, they pride themselves in being in the art of landing a big fish with a very, very fine line. Now, fishing line comes in various tests, like 100-pound test, 10-pound test, 5-pound test, half-pound test. The test means how much the fishing line can hold without breaking. So, like if you're doing if the fish is a 10-pound fish and you bring him in with a 20-pound line, the fly fishermen don't think this is any great accomplishment. But if you have a 20-pound fish and you bring him in with a line that's only a 4-pound line, that means that you knew how to give and take and wear out the fish rather than just bringing him in with force. So like typically if you have a 20-pound line, you'll just bring him in by force. That's not as good, of course, as bringing him artfully with a 2-pound line. So since that is the case, it's the same with mantras. Like you begin, you're holding and you're really aware of the mantra. And you don't really know how to work with the mantra properly. So you're using kind of force to hold on to it, your memory to hold on to it. But as you develop some skill, then you start holding on to it with a thread of mindfulness. Just a little bit, a tiny bit of awareness is on the mantra. You're kind of aware of the mantra from a corner of your mind. What you're really absorbed into is the nature of the mind itself, which the mantra's task is to reveal. So you know that you're making progress with the mantra when you kind of almost lose complete awareness of the mantra itself, until you come out of your meditation and you start actually hearing and being aware of the syllables themselves. And in a very subtle way, you realize that you're in the correct place on the mantra, where you think you should be, where you intend to be. And it just kind of is a confirmation that you've been reciting it correctly all along, but you haven't been aware of it. So that's the story of how to recite correctly and the joy that it brings.